Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and start. I think Bart may be a little late,
He's on his
but
way.
we've got a quorum. So. Call the meeting to order. Rise for a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. And here he is.
Chairman Hewitt.
Here.
Vice Chairman Glass. Here. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Fertig. Commissioner Kennedy.
Here.
Commissioner Say.
Here.
And Commissioner Putnam.
Here.
Thank you. Consent calendar. We have minutes, resolution 2216, 2217, and 2218. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented as well as the resolutions.
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none? Vote, please.
Okay, Chairman Hewitt.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Glass.
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Fertig. Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes.
Commissioner Say.
Yes.
And Commissioner Putnam.
Yes.
Okay. On to the public hearing. First item, staff report, please.
Okay, the first item we have before you is a public hearing to consider a resolution and application by the city for a coastal development permit and site plan to install 5 fixed shade structures within the existing planters or medians in various locations along Crescent Avenue adjacent to the City of Avalon public beaches. These will be between Step Beach and Pebbly Beach Road. The project is in the coastal zone and subject to coastal development permit, which requires a public hearing and thus the need for this meeting and Planning Commission approval. Planning Commission will determine whether the project is within the 300-foot appealable seaward area boundary. The project is categorically exempt under Section 15303E of the state CEQA guidelines, new construction or conversion of small structure. Would indicate, I'm not going to read the entire report to you, but I would indicate that this is part of an overall project that the city is engaged in. The city was a recipient of a grant of $177,000 plus to be utilized for local park rehabilitation. Part of this was the installation of the shade structures along Crescent Avenue, and it's going to involve 5 fixed shade structures as depicted on the site plan. And we do have David Hart here from the city to answer any questions specifically regarding this proposal and this plan. And I would indicate that this is being brought to Planning Commission in an overabundance of caution from the standpoint of whether or not these shade structures are considered structures under those guidelines. We feel that it's in a gray area, but we figured it's better to bring it to Planning Commission for approval and to meet those guidelines than to not. So if Mr. Hart will give his, I know he does have a spread or a presentation he'll make and answer any questions the members may have or anybody in the audience.
Thank you. Any discussion or any questions for staff? Before we open, I believe this will be an open public hearing for comments. So, questions for staff before we open the hearing? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Open the hearing. Anybody wish to come forward and speak for or against or make a comment on this proposal in front of us? Seeing none, close the hearing. I like how you'll know if you're speaking into the mic because you'll hear that echo. I think they're doing that on purpose to make sure we get trained to do it. Yeah, there's no echo. Don't say that. So any discussion or motion?
I just have a question. These are just concept ideas. You don't know what you're going to put up there yet?
No, we do not yet. The original idea is that they were supposed to be like those standard fabric shade structures, but then we changed it out to they're more aluminum. They're like you'll see the whale or the turtle. These were ideas that we had put forth because we thought it'd be great not just to have Avalon is a more unique place than your average place to be, and especially Front Street is iconic. And the last thing you want to do is just put the same thing that everybody else has out there. We could put just the fabric shade structures if you wanted to, but we looked at this as an opportunity not just to put shade structure up there, but public art as well, because not only would it provide shade, they act almost like a trestle. So when the light goes through them, they'll actually put patterns on the ground and create art on the ground as well as the feature as an art feature as well.
Have you ever seen these, like do they provide much shade? Seems like it doesn't provide much shade.
They're what?
They seem like they wouldn't provide much shade. Have you actually seen them in real life, like something like this?
I've seen them. You can go onto Google. That's actually where I first got the idea from. Is I just looked up unique shade structures, steel shade structures. When somebody brought that idea up to me, and I looked them up. They provide just much like trussels do. You know, the ones that are kind of like what we have right now out on Crescent Avenue in that parklet. You know, with those bamboo, and how a little bit of sunlight gets through those. But they provide the shade, but they add a little light to the area as well.
I just have
But
a question.
before we do move on with that style, we will be looking at all of that once they give me the engineering on it. They're finishing up the engineering right now.
You also wouldn't have to replace it with wet cloth, you'd have to replace.
Constantly.
Every time.
Yeah, this would be 30, 40 years before you have to replace them.
So would it be something that could come back to us once they have an idea of what you want to put there to get our input?
If I could, Dave.
Yes.
I would say that what we'd be looking for tonight would be approval of the I don't know that the locations are going to change. And
No, not the
I don't know
locations.
that the idea of them being within the coastal development distance would change. But as far as what ultimately is decided, we'd absolutely be more than happy to bring it back to you once that's decided.
Yeah, I understand what we're voting on today, but I also want to make sure.
Cost will also be a factor.
And how did you determine, because these are funds that, it's a grant, correct?
Yes,
And it's specified for certain.
shade structure.
Yeah, straight shade structures, so, because the mole is a city, right? Part of the, because, I mean, how did you pick and choose the areas?
These areas?
Yeah,
Good question. Originally, what was approved is to have, as part of this per capita grant, council had asked us to look at shade structures on Front Street. And so we did, and we brought this idea of these cloth structures that would actually go over the seating in the snake wall. But then when we looked at that, the engineering of that, the fact that we would have to take out 4 feet on each side where we have to put the poles down, the wall would not structurally be able to handle the wind load. Kind of like if you see the palapa, that's I don't know what they call it now, but it's the term horny corner, right there, that little palapa,
Oh,
right there.
yes.
If you look at that, just from that little one in that bar, it's cracking from that because it can't handle the wind. It can't handle the wind load. So we're saying, you know, we're not going to put structures in there, especially a bigger structure that becomes literally a parachute into those iconic snake wall. So we started talking about where we could put those shade structures, how we can put them in the ground, but they don't also don't look. You know, we don't want them. We want them to look nice
Right,
when they're
and
out there.
safe.
We don't want them just planted out there. And that's when Bob Greenlaw came to me. He says, "Hey, we're taking those dead trees out of those planters, the 3 planters that you have marked in there. We could probably put shade structure there, as well as we need some sort of permanent source of shade in that parklet right across from Coney Island. Because they have to constantly put that out, and that's constant maintenance, and people are constantly grabbing it and tearing it. So that's when we started looking at putting the shade structures there. And it was, the fabric one's an easy one to put in. But like we said, we didn't feel like those were iconic enough or unique enough for the island. So I started looking at other options, yes. So we're not done with the options, but the spots, we want to make sure we've secured those for the shade structures.
Thank you.
Dave, is this grant on a time, are you guys on a time crunch?
We just got it. We just have to start the project within the year.
Okay. Because it just seems to me that it's before us a tad bit premature. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't have the engineering. I mean, I'm not complaining.
No.
I'm just, I'm all for the shade. I'm all for
Yeah.
making the improvements. We don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, I can imagine that you could, if we gave you the green light and something really ugly went down there, we would all be hearing about it, right? So I think it's kind of, we're going about it a little bit backwards. I'm all for it, and I know that we need to meet some milestones in order for the grant funding thing to happen. But sometimes it's not all about money. We talk about in the staff report that it's going to mimic some of the existing structures and complement them. Well, some of the renderings I've seen in here, there's no complement whatsoever. They're unique, they're different. Art isn't necessarily bad, but we really got to nail down what it's going to look like before we upset the town.
Absolutely. But again, the first part of this is just securing those sections, those 3 planters and the 2 parts in the parklet. We actually added this part so you can kind of see kind of the direction we're going. Like you said, we are premature on the design portion of it, and because we still have to work with the engineering of it and all that. But we're just asking to basically secure those areas and say it is okay for us to go ahead and look at those. And so yes, I believe we can come back and bring that out, and that'll probably come to council first, I would assume.
And if I could add, Chairman Kenny, or Commissioner Kenny, I certainly appreciate what you're saying. One of the steps that we have to go through is to secure the sites, because we actually have to put a deed restriction, since we're using grant funding to secure those locations. So we have to we're seeking the location site approval versus really the design, and we'll be more than happy to bring the design back to you once that gets finalized, but we have to file 5 different deed restrictions for these different locations.
And all the permitting, because what we did is we bifurcated this into the money that we received in a couple different projects. One's going to be over here at the Kids Park and Lovers Cove. You probably saw the improvements there, and a little bit at Joe Machado. But in order to have a complete grant agreement, you have to have all of your environmental work completed. So this is a step in the environmental. The other ones, we just were able to file NOEs with the county. And so, and Dave is right, we do have to do deed restrictions for every location. So this, I know it seems premature, but we need to have all of the environmental and go through all that process in order to get the grant agreements executed.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, are those where the X trees were, are they just going to be nothing for the season, for this year?
It all depends how quickly we move on all this stuff, but for right now, for the summer.
Well, I mean, it seems
yes.
like to get metal ones will take quite a bit longer, but just to have absolutely nothing, just.
Currently, right now, we can look at putting something in there as decoration, but as a shade. Those trees didn't provide shade as it was. They were dead, and so. But if you feel like we should put something there decorative wise, so they don't just look empty, we can look at doing that as well. But shade wise, probably nothing will probably go in there right now.
But depending, as Dave indicated, depending on the timing, we will put landscaping in there. We
Yeah.
just don't know how much to invest depending on how quickly we're gonna be tearing it out.
Mhm.
Anything else? No? Do I hear, staff recommendation is to find the project categorically exempt from CEQA section 15303E and adopt findings in section 98103 and for the site plan 98203. Do I hear any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Call for a vote.
I'm sorry, could I ask who seconded? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Vice Chairman Glass,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Hewitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Fertig, Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Say,
Yes,
Commissioner Putnam.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Audra.
Item number 2, staff report, please.
Okay. Item number 2 is requesting for a transient rental license and coastal development permit to allow the renting or leasing of a room with or without table boards in a dwelling unit for periods of fewer than 30 consecutive days at 352 Sumner. The owner, zoning, floor plan, and property manager, 24-hour contact, the owner and applicant, Jason and Amy Perret, I believe she is present. The property is located within the medium-density residential zone. The property contains 2 bedroom and 1 bath, and is developed with the residential use consistent with the general plan is allowed under the 2021 growth policy. The property manager for the unit is listed as Amy Perret. Contact information is included within the staff report. The applicant does hold another property that holds a CUP. The subject property and all surrounding properties are developed with single and multi-residential units. The requested transient rental license does not involve any physical changes to the existing residence that would adversely affect or be materially detrimental to adjacent uses, buildings, and structures. The saturation map attached in the staff report indicates that over 50% of the properties within the applying property hold active CUPs or transient rental licenses. The proposed project is categorically exempt under section 15305 of the state CEQA guidelines. Minor alterations in land use limitations which do not result in changes in land or density. The project requires a coastal development under section 98102, B2V of the Avalon Municipal Code. The project is not within the 300-foot appealable zone. We have had 0 comments in favor or opposition of the transient rental license at the city. The staff is recommending the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt under section 15305 of the state CEQA guidelines, minor altercations in land use limitations. Adopt the findings necessary as outlined in staff report to support approval of the coastal development permit, including that the project is not within the 300-foot appealable zone, and find the application is allowed under the 2021 annual growth policy. That concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions.
Any questions for staff before we open the public hearing? Okay, seeing none?
open the hearing. Anybody wish to speak in support or have any comments? Seeing a couple of head shaking no, I'm going to close the hearing. Do I hear a motion?
So, Dave, when you have a CUP application, you're supposed to post in your window for 2 weeks, right? Or at least 2 weeks that you're applying for one, right?
Yes, I believe so. And once it's once it's approved, you have it
So
filed.
there's no posting in this home's window. So what does that mean? I mean, they just get away with not having to post it?
Well, I don't know that, man. What I can say is indicate that we had on May 2nd, I believe, May 2nd or 3rd, we had the building official go out and do his final walkthrough at that time, which that is when this passed inspection and was approved. Whether or not any conversations took place or there was a posting, I'm not aware of that.
Well, I think when they put their application in for the May 18th meeting, they were given a sign to post in the window.
And I can't speak to that. I assume they were, but I don't know that.
No, I think this, if you have, come up, if you have something to enlighten us on this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll reopen the public hearing.
Hooray.
Sure.
Thank you for hearing our request. At the time when I came in on May 3rd to verify that everything was in line as far as the inspection, to be able to be, consider on the May 18th meeting, I asked, is there anything else I need to do, and just making sure, because I wanted to make sure I didn't have any hiccups. And at that point, there was nothing said to me, and I didn't know if it was printed somewhere. I mean, I would have definitely put it in my window, but I just, like I said, I was there on the 3rd, post the 2nd, because that was the day we had it inspected, and just wanted to verify with the person in the planning office for that, just to have any additional information. So at that point, I wasn't made aware of anything.
Who told you that?
Rocio.
Rocio handed it to her?
She didn't say she handed it to her. She said she was given one. I don't know who gave it to her.
Okay, so nobody's here to confirm that.
No.
Well, I can say without any regret at all that I was not given anything at all at that time. And I would have, like I said, I would have posted it. I asked if there was anything additional, and I wasn't given anything else. So that's all I can say to that. And I would have done that if I was told to, but I wasn't. So that's all I.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak while the hearing is open? I'm going to close it again.
I'd also like to say, as we talked about last time, about, people having more than one, they already have 2 CUPs, and this will be their 3rd.
Is it in the municipal code that there's a cap?
No, we just talked about,
Okay.
I think, possibly doing that.
Okay.
So I'm just bringing it up, that's all.
Any other general discussion before an attempt to make a motion?
Is it 2? Do they have to have 2 others, or you said 1, Donna?
That one was in my report.
1, right?
I was told they have a duplex and they have one for each unit.
You have 2?
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendation with the standard list of requirements.
Okay, yeah. Okay, 1 through 4 on page 9.
Yep.
For the record. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved in second. Any more discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, call for vote, please.
Chairman Hewitt,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Glass,
Yes?
Commissioner Smith,
No,
Commissioner Furtick, Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Say,
Yes.
Commissioner Putnam.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing, Commissioner of Business?
You want to save it?
I just want to,
Save it for the end.
it's regarding CUPs.
Okay.
I just want to say that, I know, like, you had that question about there's so many CUPs, and if it's not written in the code, which is the law of the city, we have to satisfy if the application is satisfied, it's not our personal opinion to make a vote yes or no, unless the application, you know, our personal opinion, we all have personal opinions, but if it's not in the municipal code, it's hard to, I understand where you're coming from. I completely understand where you're coming from, but the city council is the one who can change all these things. And maybe when we talk about it, when it comes up again, it's something to have them look at, really.
I was just giving information.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I understand where you're coming from, and I understand it too, because there is no housing, but if it's not in the code, we can't make those.
Okay. Planning Department, any reports?
Not at this time. Just to indicate to the commission, our June meeting, first of all, I appreciate you scheduling the special meeting, but our June meeting, it looks like right now we just have one item. And just to let you know, through my office and the planning department, we have created a calendar through the rest of the year of deadlines of when applications have to be submitted to get on the subsequent calendar. So right now, we just have one request for a transient occupant license. That's the only one that could go forward in June. So it'll be a short meeting if we have it, and we'll get that information out to you as soon as we're aware.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any reports from the city attorney? Isaac?
None for me.
Okay, thank you. Any additional commissioner business? None? Business from the audience? Good night, Tony. Adjourn.